Okay, this question is from Hadouken Daz. Your question is, how do I become mentally untouchable on the soccer field? You want to develop this resilience um, and become unwavering in your training and in your play. So I want to walk you through a few strategies that are going to help you develop this. The first thing you could check out, and something that I wish I had, access to 26 years ago, 27 years ago, check out the podcast with Tim Ferriss and Andrew Huberman. They talk about the 5 pillars, right? Andrew Huberman says the 5 pillars are sleep, hydration and nutrition, sunlight, movement, and relationships, right? So, one of the best ways, 3 of the best ways to get great sleep are don't eat too late, right? Couple hours before you have, right? You want to space out as far as possible the time from your last meal in before bed. You don't want to drink caffeine past noon, and you want to take maybe a hot shower or a hot bath if possible in the last 10 minutes right before bed. Those 3 things are going to encourage great sleep. Since you've been asleep for however many hours, you've been without water and food. So the first thing you want to do when you wake up, you want to drink some water with a pinch of salt, maybe a squeeze of lemon. The next thing you want to do, since you've just woken up, you want to get outside, right? This is going to start a timer in your head that's actually going to lead to great sleep, right? So sleep and daylight, they're connected. And since sleep allows you to recover, getting outside and starting that clock in your head is super important, right? You want to see sunlight. And they say, Andrew Huberman says you want to go for a 5 to 10 minute walk, maybe half an hour walk. If it's cloudy, and this is encouraging you to get, right, the sleepiness out of your body, right? It really wakes you up, so you're actually energized for the day, and you're gonna see how this is connected to mental toughness and resilience. The next thing is movement, and I'm not going to get into that because we could talk about movement for hours, so I'll let you check out that podcast. But the 5th one is relationships, right? Relationships, all the relationships in your life are actually a reflection of the relationship with yourself, right? So it's one of the best ways to develop a great relationship with yourself. And a lesson I learned way too late in life is this quote from Jordan Peterson. He goes, set your house in perfect order. Set your house in perfect order before you go out into the world. And he says it's important to do this. So clean your room, make your bed, right? And it's important to do this because if you can just control, right, the area of your room and your bed, then that kind of teaches yourself that you can change the world for the better, right? So this is such an important habit that I can't talk about enough, that will really take, right? It'll help you organize your life. The second thing that will help you really organize your life is a daily planner, right? They say the brain is a great place to come up with ideas, but a poor place to store them. So anytime you have a thought, a trivial, not trivial, important, something you want to get done, you write it down so then you could see it and visualize it. And they always gave us planners every year, and I remember growing up, and I never took advantage of the planner they gave us. It would have been, I wish someone had said, this would have helped your soccer performance, because you could have started to write down training and have this test and this exam and this project, right? It just helps you organize your life. So that's the second thing to improve the relationship with yourself. So now let me show you, just so you start to see where I'm going with this. The first 5 things we talked about, you couldn't see me doing it, right? Those things are unseen. Now when I talk about personal relationships and the relationship with yourself, now I want to demonstrate, right? Dishes are done. We're pretty tidied up. We're pretty tidied up in the living room. Final check. Bed. beds made, right? I got shirts for the work week, right? So now you see, so you start to ask, okay, Andrew, he's saying it's important to make the bed, clean the room, and now look, he's actually done it. So, right? So those are the 5 pillars: sleep, hydration, nutrition, movement, and sunlight, and relationships. So that one's a super important one for relationships. Now let's go to actual developing training, because if you now have, you got to seek out great trainers, right? Muhammad Ali, he would write to trainers and coaches. He would say, "My name is Muhammad Ali. I want to be the best boxer in the world. I would very much like to meet you." And just with that letter alone, right, he had the humility, and because he was truthful with himself, because he knew he wasn't the greatest in the world, and to become the greatest in the world, you have to accept that you're not, but that you could become better than you are. So it was a combination of humility and bravery, because if he wrote to someone, then they could very easily tell him to go kick rocks or just reject him, right? He could just get no response. So you have to be brave, right? So those are important ideas, right? Because it takes humility and humbleness to, after a game, to go up to the opponent, to the team that you just played against, and go up to the best player and say, "Hey, I noticed in the game you had a great shot, or you had a great, you have a great first touch. How did you," if you're genuine with that question, you just say, "How did you develop your first touch?" Or, "What does your training look like?" Or, "Can you show me how you did that thing?" That's something I regret not doing enough, and that can make you mentally resilient, because it's this mindset of curiosity. Because if you're always curious about the right behind the facade, it's like someone on the field is different from when they're training, right? When you go to play, you're competing. So when you're competing, you got to be fierce. But behind them, it's just another kid who just, you're just the same, right? Any two soccer players, they're just the same, albeit they have different circumstances and all that stuff, but they just usually love to play. So if you're genuine with any soccer player, you ask them, can you help me? Me personally, I asked, so I got 2 stories. I asked my buddy, how do I improve my soccer training? And I've known this person for, since freshman year at Duquesne. That was 2008. It's now 2023, so 15 plus years. I said, how do I improve my juggling? Right, I've never asked him how to improve, and the minute I asked, I got an immediate response back. You should juggle with a 2.2 pound heavy ball, right? Simple as that. And he's helped me change my life for the better. I'll tell you another story. I asked my buddy, he's a world-class oyster shucker. I asked him, and he's trained me. He was the first one to teach me how to open oysters, and we worked together. At this point, it was like we worked together 6 years plus. And the moment I asked him, how do I become a better shucker, he showed me a simple technique. He's like, "Oh, you're doing this wrong." Like, he could name it out immediately. So sometimes you gotta force your friends to help to be honest with you, because it's hard. Sometimes it's hard for friends to be critical of others, or critical of their own friends, and that's why enemies are super valuable, because they'll say things that they don't care about how you react, right? They'll tell you something. So that's why it might be important to listen to enemies. Okay, now let's get to some training. Another way you can develop mental resilience through soccer is smart training, right? If you're someone, it's like in a fight, if you got 2 dogs, do you want to be the one who's got the loudest bark, or the loudest bite? right? You gotta have the strongest. Your bite, that's gotta be loud, right? So it's like your confidence comes through multiple mistakes and failures, right? Because like the KFC guy, the guy who invented KFC, the story goes, he asked 1,200 plus restaurants if they wanted to buy his chicken recipe, and all 1,200 said no. So the question is, if you were the KFC guy, would you go to the 12,000th one person and ask, do you want to buy it, or would you have rethought your chicken recipe? But he continued on, and someone eventually ended up buying it. It's like, a lot of people don't realize that everyone growing up is a failure, right? In the sense that it takes 8 to 20 months to go from crawling to walking. So you might have not have thought of yourself as a failure, but the time it took for you to walk, each time you crawled and couldn't walk, you were failing, but you were growing. So that's why you have to start to learn from your mistakes and your failures. These days, most people, they make a mistake and they don't tell anyone about it, and they never try again. The master has failed more times than the beginner has tried. Right, so what I'm about to share with you, this has come from years and years of failures. So I'm far from figuring it out, but I'm just trying to get a little bit every day. So that's a way to, right, if you can get a little bit every day, that's gonna allow you to become resilient, because you've gone through multiple iterations of testing and failures to say, okay, this worked and this didn't work, so let me double down on what's working, and then test some more and test again. So one of my new favorite warm-up tools that's going to help you improve your soccer game is swinging a David Weck RMT rope. The reason why this is so powerful is because it makes your spine bend and twist, right? It's called an RMT rope because it stands for rotational movement training. So this will cut down your warm-up significantly. It'll improve your balance, your timing, your rhythm, your coordination, right? Because your hands and your feet, they're intimately connected, right? Your body's connected from your fingers to your toes. So if you can start to keep a rhythm with your hands, right, it's gonna help your whole body, because you have a rhythm to your body, right? You have a rhythm in your heart. There's a rhythm to the game and to life. So your ability to keep a rhythm with this rope is going to be directly correlated with your ability to perform well when you're playing and practicing. So that's step one, I would say, that would have that's changed my life, that you could start implementing. You want it to be a little bit longer than you are tall. This rope is about 6 feet long. I'm 5'10" on a good day, and you might want a little bit extra room so you could tie some knots. Some people like knots in their RMT rope. The second thing that's super helpful is getting multiple repetitions in very short periods of time, what I call a soccer vacation, right? Because if you can make or buy a kick trainer, you're going to be able to develop both your feet rapidly. And if you could develop your first touch with both your feet rapidly and develop your striking technique, then you are going to be able to train smarter than people who aren't using smart training tools. So it's not just about it's not just that it's going to make you better. It's on the deeper level. It turns into a mindset, right? Because with this tool, you don't have to wait for a training partner, and you don't have to go to a wall, and right, it's very cheap to make. So in that sense, you can start to train wherever you are all the time, right? Muhammad Ali, he trained all day, 6 days a week. So you don't need to go to necessarily to a soccer camp or have 1v1 training. What you need to do is start to learn from each touch, right? Because when you're getting touches, it's like anytime you mess up, you can feel it in your touch. So this is going to help you rapidly test what feels good and if you're getting a good contact, and you could start to really, you could fail quickly and start to learn from your failures in a short period of time. Like each touch you can feel if you've struck it well or struck it poorly, and just be able to iterate, right? You can begin to change your technique or change the angle of your foot, and it turns into this effortless Zen-like approach to training that I can't recommend enough. So if you don't have any crafts, or if you're not crafty, or you don't have, you know, a tennis ball or rope or some duct tape, you could just order one SKLZ kick trainer from Amazon, 24 bucks. Another thing that you could do is a different style of a soccer vacation. It's going to help develop your resiliency is investing in a size 1 ball that you can dribble, right? You want to be able to dribble as much as possible all the time, because it's not only active play and practice, it's also passive play. Like anytime that you could be walking, you could be dribbling, and anytime that you're walking, you could be juggling, right? So you kind of want to turn it so, you know, you're not limited to just soccer practice to where you're improving, right? Some people don't have a model of people in their lives who can find just joy in playing perpetually. So you have to be your own, you almost have to be your own role model, and you have to you have to almost inspire yourself, because some people people get better in different ways. Some people have, you know, certain scheduled times where they train, and other people train in different ways. And I'm not saying one is better than the other. What I'm saying is there's different options for different people. So this is far from the best training in the world. It's just some training, right? It's just a way. So that's a technique that you could use. Bringing a ball with you everywhere you go, so that you get more touches every day, so that you can make more mistakes, so you can learn more, right? It's just about increasing your mistakes, and the more mistakes you learn, it's like in the World Cup final, each team, each player made multiple mistakes, yet, right? Like they're playing at the highest level, yet at the beginner level, you know, I've read all these things online, people saying, oh, you know, I make all these mistakes, and, you know, how do I stop making mistakes? It's not about stopping making mistakes. You're going to be making mistakes the rest of your life. You want to start to make different mistakes. You want to start to make smarter mistakes and start to learn from the ones you have, so you could make different mistakes. So you just got to keep on learning. Another thing that you can do that's super effective to help you develop your juggling abilities is play the barrel game. You got to find a bucket, garbage can, barrel, hamper, and you want to start juggling anytime that if there's a soccer field, if there's a garbage can or a trash can recycling, you could borrow it temporarily, and you start to play this barrel game. You want to start to juggle with a bounce or without a bounce, using the different parts of your body. So you could go like this. You could go bounce, bounce, in. And then you could do that with your right foot, left foot, both feet alternating. You could do it right thigh. You could do it left thigh. You could do it both thighs alternating. You could do it any part of the body you want, with or without a bounce. And this is a way where you could start to measure your juggling abilities, because of some people who try to start juggling, they get very frustrated because they don't get in a snap. What this does, it makes juggling skills easy, because you're close enough where it's a challenge, but it's easy enough where you can develop rapidly. So as you start to get better, you could start to take away a bounce. You could take a few steps back. You could put balls in your hands, tennis balls or weights. You could start to use tennis ball as the ball that you're using, and you could start to compete, right? Novice players can come more closer to the barrel, more advanced players can come farther away, and in this way, a beginner player and an advanced player can start to compete on the same field, playing the same game. I remember another story that comes to mind. My buddy, growing up, his name was Hunter Gorski. I think he's playing pro now. He told me a story of this kid who showed up to this tryout. He had ankle shin guards. He had rec specs. He looked like a quote-unquote nerd. And Hunter told me he was the best player he's ever played with in his whole life. Right? So, yes, it's true. Everyone judges books by their covers because that's how our DNA, right? That's how we were designed. But the more that you can see yourself as the more that you could see yourself as yourself and others for who they are, it's like, you know, you're gonna come across people who are trying to hate on you on the game, like in the game, literally trash talkers. You could have fans who are trying to get your attention, and it's like, or even online, right? People are trying to tell you that you're, you know, your training's poor, or your play's poor, or you know, you're worthless, or whatever. It's like anyone who's trying to put others down is inside really hurting for something, or is just you know, it's like someone's taking the time out of their day to tell you how poor you are, or whatever. You know, it's easy for me to say you could just block that negative energy out, but it's just a practice. So the answer to your question, long story short, is there's no one thing that's gonna snap in your head and just make you mentally resilient. It's a journey, right? It's a journey through your experiences, your successes and failures and learning. It's like a roller coaster ride. Life's a roller coaster. So as you're going, you know, if you're going down, then you can, you know, start to learn from experience, and you gotta shoot yourself up. Just like it's darkest right before the light, you just have to just grow every day, keep on learning, stay curious. So I hope some of these ideas help, and reach out with any questions. All right, thank you.